What's up, guys? In Your Head with Shannon Stanford is a podcast where Shannon talks to everyday people with everyday problems. Everyone has a story, and every story should be told. So you listen right now to Shannon's podcast on Spotify and many other places, y'all. Come on, man, be the light. Peace.
Welcome to another edition of In Your Head with Shannon Stanford. I am said Shannon Stanford, and today my guest is Lesley Andrew from over in England. That's right, we are going once again across the pond to England, and we're going to have a conversation with this lovely woman. I'm honestly, I love the English accent, but the English, Irish, Scottish accent, those things, I just absolutely love the accent. So I get a little lost in her accent as she goes on. This woman was wonderful. She's funny. She's smart. She has a lot of valid points. So I hope that if you guys get anything from this episode, really listen to it. And because there was a lot of things she said in this interview that I got that made me think. So let's just get to Lesley Andrews. Andrew.
In the quiet of the night where dreams take flight, voices whisper softly, shining like the stars so bright. Every heart has a story, don't you ever forget. Let's open our minds, share the journey, no regret. Here we gather, a circle of hope, sharing laughter and tears, we learn just how to cope. Every tale we tell, it helps to heal our souls. In the space of understanding, together we become whole. So let the waves flow, let the music rise. In your head with Shannon, the stories come alive. Every heartbeat echoes where our spirits thrive. From fears to triumphs, we'll paint the skies anew. In this podcast journey, I'm here with you.
Well, Lesley, thank you for joining us all the way over in the UK. Where exactly in the UK are you from?
So I'm in England, and a part of England that is Yorkshire. So that's in the north of England. So yeah, it's like I love the fact that there's the cities, and then there's also the sort of countryside, the mount, like the hills and everything. So you've got a real mix, and it's probably one of the biggest counties in the UK.
Yeah, I've seen pictures and some videos and stuff like that, like on TikTok and everything, and it is absolutely gorgeous over there.
Yeah, you don't always get the best view, but yeah, if you're out somewhere and like the weather's not always so great, but yeah, part of life.
Yeah.
If you want to see a rainbow, you have to put up with the rain. That thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What was Lesley's childhood like?
Yeah. So I think just, I was always quite a happy kid, really. And I'm the youngest of three siblings, so there's me and my older brother and sister. And I think that I'd spent a lot of time sort of playing out. We'd run around the street playing hide and seek and things like that, different games. I remember playing like down the woods, and I was always into art. Always did. Like if we were watching TV, I couldn't just sit and watch something. I'd have to be doing something. So if there'd be, I don't know, like a TV program demonstrating a craft, I would have to do it. And like, art's always been a big part of me and my life, and something that I've always loved. I think ordinarily, like my childhood was pretty good. Like I think looking back at it, there were things that I probably struggled with. I was probably quite shy, and like my parents are divorced, and that happened when I was really young. So like there were probably things that I just sort of got on with and felt like I was just getting on with, but maybe in hindsight I was struggling with a little bit at the time. That's maybe like times when you're like indecisive about doing something and holding back. And somebody said to me, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago we were talking about art, and he was saying, actually, you know what? You probably have been using art all your life to, like, from that early age, to regulate your emotions and to manage when you've, needed to be one thing for one person, one set of parents, and be another thing for another set of parents. When, I mean, my parents it was all very amicable and all very, like, no drama. But then actually, as a child, not understanding those things, there's that tension of, what do I say to who, when? And yeah, like, I would tend to, like, play a lot with my friends and like, use a lot of art to express that, unbeknown.
Yeah, I guess in hindsight you can look at that and see that. So as you grew up, you ended up becoming a an art therapist. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did that come to be?
So I suppose art's always been there, and it was, I chose to study art at school, and went and did a degree in textiles up in Scotland, and for 11 years I was an art teacher. So it was so much about keeping art in my life and helping other people to use art and help them to develop their skills. And after some time, I made that switch because it felt more. I knew art needed to be part of what I was going to do, but it felt more important to help people with it emotionally rather than about their skills and rather than about the grades that they got. So we're talking about 13 years ago. I, like, left teaching, started doing the art therapy training, and one thing that really strikes me about that is that when you're in that moment when you take it, lots of people were saying to me, "Oh, you're so brave. You're so brave taking this leap and not knowing how it's going to be." But it didn't feel like I was being brave. It felt like it was just a necessary thing. It just felt like it was a natural next step. And looking back, if I'd have not done that and I'd still been in teaching, then I would have missed so many things, so many opportunities. And we often are faced with these, I don't know, like these pivotal marks where you either are so desiring the next thing that you can't possibly imagine anything else, or you know that there's something that's not quite right in your current situation that you want to escape from. And for me, it was the former, where I was really wanting to be an art therapist. I'd done my research. I'd recommended it to a lot of students that I was teaching as well. If they were doing art and psychology, why don't you be an art therapist? And so there was that desire, and there was that kind of passion and excitement about it. But I know a lot of people don't know what they may want to leave their jobs or change careers or do something different because they're not happy where they are, and they don't necessarily have a new goal, somewhere to move forwards to. So they're having to take an even bigger leap. That's what's courageous, I think, and that's what there's more of an urgency about that. But yeah, for me, it was very much about continuing to use art and having that sort of innate knowing that it would turn out right, even though I didn't know all the steps.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I was always taught, it's not brave if you're not scared, and whenever you're just leaping into something and without hesitation, that it is ultimately the most courageous thing that somebody can do to up and just change like core parts of your current situation. So that is a very courageous thing to do. So when you got into the art therapy, how does it like what do you do to kind of help people? Like what is exactly that process like?
Okay, so there's two ways I could talk about this. One would be comparing and showcasing the difference between art therapy and other therapies, in which case I'm speaking about how art therapy helps when words are not enough. So going through a challenge, feeling some emotional complexities, some emotional heaviness, whatever that is, and we have this time where it might be really hard to physically speak about what's been going on or how you're feeling, or there might not be the nuances of the words or that confusion as to how we're feeling, and what art therapy does is provide a non-verbal mental health service approach to exploring and expressing those emotions and getting to the core, like internally, like working with the body as well as the mind. And like the mind part's very much about like symbols, I would say, like looking and for somebody to create something that is a direct thing, like a diagram of their experience or their feelings, and then the body part is more of a more somatic expression, as to like somebody might use paint or they might use pastels, they might use their hands and not a brush, and just how it's felt becomes more embodied as to like what's going on for them. And what feels really relevant in this point is that it can be a mix of both. It can of course be both, but it's that recognition that art can change much like our emotions can change and our circumstances can change. And when people are very much kind of in their head and really stuck with the thinking, that's when they may squash emotions down, or they may pop, all their emotions may feel so overwhelming that they don't know what to do with them, they can't function. Whereas actually if they connect with the sensory aspects of art making and express emotions there, then it's going from the bottom to the top rather than from the head down, then that can really help to sort of improve someone's mental health through feeling more grounded and feeling more of a possibility for hope. And yeah, I think that's really how it works. And in like scooting back to the comparing art teaching and art education to art therapy, the main thing with that is that art therapy is not about teaching skills. It's not an art class. It's not about what the picture looks like at the end, although that can hold some meaning for somebody. It's about the process and it's about expression. It's not about something needing to be perfect. And because I changed from art teaching to art therapy, I had to be really mindful of those differences. And I had to, there were times when I might not help somebody with a technique because it's kind of, oh, I'll help them to navigate through the frustration of this. However, actually, there's other times when somebody absolutely needs that technical help with that material so that they can express something that's really going on for themselves.
That is very interesting. Does that kind of therapy work better with well, I mean, I'm sure it works with everybody, but I would think that it does it work really well with, say, like the special needs people. Because
It can.
as a father of an autistic son, I think like, art therapy, I think, was a part of his usual early routine whenever we would go to like doctors and and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it can be for sure. And I think, that like the non-verbal approach can be really helpful. I've worked with a lot of people with sort of physical disabilities as well as sort of learning disabilities. And sometimes there's adaptations that come in. So like we've made adapted pens and pencils. So if someone's like struggling with a mobility hand issue, for instance, then there's extra things that can be made to support that, as well as being able to like generally capture that internal world for somebody. So I always say there's no expectations. I have no expectations from you. Like you might have like need me to be a certain way. Like somebody might want me to join in, or they might want me to step back, and that could look different for everyone. And then it's maybe that invitation to create, and it's not necessarily about making a picture or making a piece of art that you might ordinarily sort of call art, but more about how you're using art materials. So playing with materials, like touching the materials and like different actions, movement, and those kind of things. A lot
Okay.
of children
Okay.
benefit from art therapy as well, but it's one of those myths that it's primarily for those people that don't have the vocabulary to explain how they're feeling or express how they're feeling. And to debunk that myth, one of the reasons why somebody that is maybe very ambitious and very like cognitively intelligent, in that like we all have different capacities, that might articulate their emotions well, they can really benefit from art therapy because it encourages them to get into their body. It encourages them to really feel their feelings, like genuinely feel their feelings rather than just think them. We think our feelings a
Hmm.
lot.
Okay. So as as you get into that world, have you um come across um say patients or people that like they're, without going into their story, because I know that's something that we won't do,
No.
that has made that's gotten to you, like mentally and physically, just like knowing the stuff that they've gone through, or just worked
Oh,
with somebody so much. How do you handle those situations?
yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking of someone right now who um just been through so many things, just so many losses and so many challenges that the art was what spoke. And this person did speak a little bit, but not really, and hadn't got to the point of talking about the challenges in particular and just how emotional that was. However, what was going on in the art therapy space was a lot of spontaneous expression, I would say, and a lot of messy things, a lot of pouring of paint, and things where I was needing to be really supportive of the environment. Like we had a lot of paper towels around, there was lots of clearing up, and there was lots of guidance about, is that like, should we just push that a little bit further with how much paint we're using? And okay, now we'll retract and use a bit less paint. And there's subtleties with that about maybe, okay, well, maybe we'll use a sponge right now, or maybe we will make something a bit smaller, or maybe we'll put some newspaper down or a big sheet of plastic down on the table so that you've got space and it's protected, that area is protected so you can express that. And the emotions are then held in the art. So I work with a lot of people who they might have been through so much, things from their childhood, things just throughout their life, and sometimes things are very raw, and then sometimes they'll show those emotions within themselves, other times they won't, but then the emotions are caught in the art and you can really feel it, and I'm feeling it as well. So the way that I work with that for myself is that I do a lot of art making myself. So there's art making that I do directly in response and as a process of individual clients' sessions and expression. And then and that can be all kinds of things. I do a lot of things in a sketchbook as well as on sheets. But then there's also my own personal art making. And that's how I would distinguish between making art as a therapist and making art as an artist. When I'm making art as an artist, some of those all my life experience will come into it, but I'm not actively thinking about a client or responding to a client. It's for me. There's a real sort of nourishment for myself. And, it's hard to distinguish these things because they exist within my world. But yeah, the key thing, and that's probably one of the first things that I learned when I was doing my art therapy training about self-care and recognizing what is it about that piece of work that you've just done, that working with that client that's brought something emotionally within me. What is it that's happening? And those things are about, we talk about things like projection and countertransference and like those ideas about what it causes you to do, I suppose. And the biggest thing is that being able to, like, I've probably still got lots of blind spots that we work on those blind spots, like art therapists, like all therapists have their own therapy and their own coaching and all of those supervision is really valuable to be able to work on those blind spots and sort of go, I'm holding on to a lot right now and I need to express it, and then thinking, is there something going on for me that's making me think that? So for instance, like bouncing back to sort of what I shared about my childhood, I was saying actually there were things that it felt quite amicable, it was all fine, whereas subconsciously I might have been quite scared. Subconsciously I might have been holding on to certain things. So it's questioning and constantly reflecting. Like, yeah, you never stop reflecting when you're in this world, and it might come up as an image that maybe not necessarily going to analyze an image or anything, but just seeing what happens and seeing, like, I really, really value the therapeutic benefits of art for me, not just as a offering for somebody else. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, in this world we always think about the whenever we talk about the people that are in therapy and, telling their stories, and how by them telling their stories, how it affects them. But the longer I've been doing this, six years now, and the more people I talk to, I often wonder to myself, whenever people like go to therapy, because I actively believe that people should do a therapy in any form. But how does the therapist, because generally most of the time I would think that, some people can, like, when they get to the office, they shut off, that part of their brain or their hearts or something like that, that whenever people are talking and telling their stories and stuff like that. But the people that can't, like the therapists that just cannot shut off that part of their life or their brain, their hearts or whatever, and just feel all those patients' pain and suffering and joys and laughs and stuff like that. How does it affect you guys as a person? Because I think oftentimes a lot of people just forget that the therapist is a person too.
Yeah.
And they've had their own dealings with it, because otherwise why wouldn't they, or why are they in majored in therapy to begin with? Because I've always thought to myself, like, people that become therapists, most of the time they've been through some shit. So
Yeah.
so how do you, so like, at the end of the day, I mean, I know you said that, like, you use art yourself as your own version of like a therapy or an outlet, but does it ever just like affect you to where you just kind of like emotionally just lose it and just like
Mm.
cry and just kind of and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we can't underestimate the impact of working with complex trauma, working with complex emotional challenges, and just how these non-verbal things can really reach our souls, sort of thing, and you can't underestimate that. So yeah, I've cried. I can drive home from an appointment and I'm in tears, and I think that's part of that sort of cathartic release and part of that connection and part of being human. And for sure, I think just to normalize the emotions, that emotional spectrum that humans feel, and giving ourselves permission to to experience those things and to notice those things, whilst also managing expectations. So we're not a magic wand. I don't have a magic wand to say, when you work with me, when you do art therapy, I'm gonna fix all of everything, because that feels unrealistic when there's so many things that the depth where but what I'm doing when I'm working with someone is I'm maybe in those feelings with them, in the dirt with them, sort of thing. Some of these things quite heavy. So rather than me having this illusion that, and this would be the same for other therapists, that people come to therapy thinking that, oh, I see this in a lot of maybe families, that you kind of, there's something going on with my child and it's really tricky, I want you to help them. And they might even use the term, can you fix them? And it's kind of, well, they're not broken. They're not broken. Sometimes we can feel broken because we can feel that it's just almost so fragmented with thoughts and feelings all over, and we feel at a loss. But it's not about me coming in and doing some magic to then transform their internal world and make life completely different and make life sort of better and for things to be completely healed and transformed. But it's my job to sit beside them while they express that part of themselves. So when I've allowed that to happen, I've had a greater capacity to do that, to sit beside them, just sit beside them, rather than when I've felt pressure to transform them, to show the move, to improve their mood and to improve their resilience. And when there's that pressure, I can let go of what I can't control more. So there's lots of variables with this, and there's a real nuance with this, but I think it comes from there's definitely something about managing and making that connection and trying to debunk the power imbalance of, you come into therapy, you'll work with a therapist, then you'll go out and you'll feel, people say, oh, I want to feel happy. It's like, well, what does that really look like? But I see people who are more confident when they finish like a course of some therapy, or even when they're making art themselves, or they're choosing to do something for themselves, prioritize themselves, which does make me think that part of how I work with it is I'm really recognizing when I'm doing that myself, when I'm putting myself first in my life, when I'm doing my best self-care, when I'm really allowing myself to fill my cup, when I'm doing the things that I love. Because if I didn't do that, and same with self-expression, if I didn't do that and I'm encouraging other people to do that, then I'm not showing up as my best self, and I'm not honouring that for myself. So yeah, it's just a bit of a learning curve all the time. We're always leaning in and out of helping people and helping ourselves, and yeah, there's not really a fine line between. I think it would be unhealthy to completely have a line and shut off, that's them, this is me, because yeah, we're hardwired for connection, and so we don't we will connect with other people's language and emotions and their stories, and that's what makes us human, and that's where the joy comes as well. So if we can connect with those fab moments where somebody mixes a wonderful colour, then they're just like really joyful about and grateful about it, and they're like, oh, I just love this shade of green. And actually, because I'm connecting with their hard, sad emotions, I can also connect with that curiosity and that fascination of, oh, I've just created this lovely mint green, and it's like, oh, and they've spent maybe half the session mixing colours, and there's a joy in that. And I know that if I wasn't feeling the sadness and the anger with them, I wouldn't also feel the joy. And like, yeah, all of that. So yeah, I'm not sure I gave you like an actual answer to that, a solution, but I think part of it is sitting in the dirt, and then you can rise together, and then filling my own cup is the main thing.
No, I'm pretty sure there was an answer in there.
Somebody, if you're listening to this, listeners, if you're listening to this and you figured out what I was saying, then let us know, because this is part of just, I suppose this is one of the reasons why art therapy exists. So, is so wonderful, because when we've got these patterns of language that get tangled and are hard to communicate, that's when an image might just capture it perfectly. And you know what? I feel like after I've spoken to you today, I feel like I need to make an image to represent this, and I can send it over to you as a thing.
Oh, that's great. I always say in retrospect to that, when words fail, art will can do the talking.
Yes.
And so it's yeah. So there was there was an answer there. So let's get back into your life. What makes you happy?
So I love spending time with friends and family. I love having a giggle and a laugh. I love getting into I love being dancing as well. So yeah, if I used to do a lot of dancing, but then it's more like I used to do a bit of Ciroc dancing. I've not done that for a long time. And yeah, just I like trying new things. I really enjoy sort of new things. So like I quite like being a beginner at something and just doing something silly. But yeah, I think my main thing is that sort of connection with people. As I said before, art's always been a big thing for me, and I think that's because I've always loved art, and it's that connection with other people, other artists, and that expression. But the expression is like a communication with other people, sort of like, yeah, doing those things. I used to do a lot of hiking and a lot of running, and that's something that for a little while now I've been dabbling with a bit, but have not properly got back into. So part of my plan for this year is to get out and hike and get out into the countryside. So we were saying about Yorkshire being a really good space for that. So I'm doing, and I suppose like one of the things that when I haven't been able to hike, it's been due to fitness and due to some health stuff, and my energy level's not been so great. So during those times, my art that I was making was inspired by the mountains, inspired by the hills, and I'd create things. And sometimes the last time I was in the Lake District, which was maybe last summer, me and some of my family were making art on the top of the mountain. So it was really lovely to be able to bring those two things together. But yeah, I'm really appreciative of being able to have so many different options of things to do.
Now, you told me whenever we first started talking that you attempted to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yes. Yes. I did.
So, all right. First of all, before we get into the climbing and what happened there, um, what was the motivation to thinking, I'm going to do this? I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. So I've all, I still always love a challenge, and at the time when I got signed up, I was doing a lot of races. I was doing a lot of obstacle races, mud run type things. I was doing hiking as well, and just part of that is about being out in nature and the enjoyment and running with other people and the endurance element of it, and part of it is that achievement from getting to the finish line and or getting to the summit of a mountain and taking a photograph on a trig point. And one of the people that was in the obstacle race community had posted about it, saying he'd been, and it was the same company that that he went with, that I ended up going with. But he was just showing all these pictures, and I think part of when I don't think it was on my radar before, or at least when it had been on my radar, when I've seen things, it felt too out of reach. But this guy just seems to be like a normal person, not like somebody that was super, super fit, or not somebody that was had loads and loads of support behind him, sort of thing. So it's kind of, well, if you can do it, then I'd quite like to do that as well. So that's when I sort of looked into it, and I think that was maybe over a year before I actually did the climb. But yeah, I remember it was seeing pictures maybe on social media, and then thinking, yeah, actually, there's a seed being planted here. And sometimes I do tend to kind of go, if you say, if I say I'm going to do something, then I will. I had the same sort of idea of doing a half Ironman triathlon was the same, that somebody like challenged me to it. It's like, oh, it was when I was doing things leading up to my 40th birthday. It's kind of, here's a list of things that you can do. It's like, suggest me some things, and someone went, oh, half Ironman, middle distance triathlon, and it was like, deal. And then like, now I've got to do it. So I do like have a little bit of a when I know, I go, and then if in doubt, leave it out. These are my sort of phrases. But I think sometimes we're left in that messy middle where we're kind of very cautious, and maybe we kind of know, we do know, but we don't have the confidence to go, or we know that something's not right for us, but we don't have the confidence to say no. But yeah, that's where it all happened. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's the mindset on why you thought you needed to do this. Now let's talk about actually doing it. So
Yeah.
what was that day like? What was going through your brain,
Yeah. So the whole of the Kilimanjaro climb is over a number of days, like a week, something. And you're going up in different stages. So we start in and on maybe going through forests and going through sort of feels like a rainforest, and then that spars out. After each day of climbing, you're staying in these little huts. So we had a bit of a premium option of huts, which some people stay in tents, but we had huts, and they had like little camper bed things in. So you sleep in those, and then there's times when you're needing to adjust to the altitude. So there was one place where we stayed an extra night. We climbed up to these rocks called zebra rocks, and they're really cool. I don't know anything about geology, but it's sort of black and white rocks, and it does look like a zebra. It feels really fun to be there. And I remember that was Valentine's Day actually, when we sat underneath these rocks, and because I was passing out like love heart sweets to people, and it just felt really nice. So we had an extra night, and then kind of carrying on up, I am quite a slow hiker, and I was the shortest out of all the groups, so my strides were slower anyway. And the higher we were getting, the more I was realizing that I needed to go slow. And they encourage people to go slow. Like, they really do. They have a bit of a mantra about it. And because they want people to manage it without getting altitude sickness. But yeah, I was going slow and I got altitude sickness. But there were some really wonderful points on that journey, and really there was lots of things where I remember the leader was speaking about. There was lots about physical, and but there was more conversations about mindset. And I actually think that in my head I'd visualised being at the top. I was determined to keep going. I felt like I was, tuned in terms of my mindset, but then physically it wasn't possible. So it felt really tough, because the conversations about mindset implied that if you didn't, the reason for not getting to the top would be your mindset, rather than altitude sickness grabbing you. And at the same time, they'd say, like, the most fit people can get altitude sickness. You could be in your 20s and you could get, like, struck by altitude sickness. So it's not necessarily going to be like the fittest that survive, sort of thing. But yeah, I remember being right at the back, walking with a Sherpa, and we were singing together. And I think at one point he carried my bag. You carry really a lot of stuff, because there's Sherpas that carry the big bags, like the overnight bags with your sleeping bag and things. And then when you walking on each day, there's a lot in your sort of day sack, because you have to carry a lot of water and things like that. So he grabbed my bag to carry it a bit. And then I'd reached, we'd got to a point where the idea was that we were going to be sleeping there, and then waking up at midnight and then setting off towards the summit. But that's when I got so unwell, and I just, it was really worrying. I just didn't feel, I was so disorientated, didn't really know what day it was. I was feeling that I'd gone to sleep in one of the bunk beds at one point, because we had an option to sleep. And then there was a call for dinner, and I'm climbing off the bunk bed, and I'd reached my arms. So just imagine a bunk bed in a hostel or something. You're at the top, and you've got a funny ladder. The ladders are never ideal. Like, there might be big gaps between each step. And I don't think there was any handles. Sometimes in bunk beds that we have at home, it's all very sturdy and all very good. But this one had metal bars that were curved, and the steps were really narrow, like far away. And then I had my arms reaching across the side of the mattress to then be able to find where my feet was going. And I was starting to feel dizzy, so I had to navigate my way down. And then I sat on somebody else's bed, and I just feel really dizzy. And I could feel I was crawling, and I could feel myself, my digestion was feeling a bit ropey. I crawled out of the building, and that's when I vomited. That's when I had to quickly go to the loo. So managed it not to be too disastrous. But I remember this guy he was one of the leaders of that base camp, saying, "Is she going back down the mountain?" And it made me think about, like, aye, yippee, yippee, aye, she'll be going back down the mountain. But I was so, like, now looking back at it, I think, like, I laugh like that, but I just felt told off. I felt like I really felt told off, like I'd done something wrong and I'm kind of going, no, I'm ready, I'm raring to go, I'm fine, I'm fine, sort of thing. And so anyway, so that's when the decision had been taken away from me. It wasn't, I didn't have to then give up. It didn't, there was something really important about not giving up, but equally that we, as humans, we have to know our limitations. And I remember we went and had some lunch, and the leader of my group said, "See how you feel after you've eaten." And he checked my oxygen level, and it was really low. And he said to me, "Your oxygen level's been low the whole time, but I didn't want to tell you because you might panicked." Like, okay, so the fact that I'd got to sort of 4,900 meters is a pretty mean feat anyway, to say my oxygen levels were lower than ideal all the way through. But yeah, and he was pointing to this guy who looked significantly worse. He's pointing to this guy who was like falling asleep on the table, and he's going, "You're not as bad as him." And it's like, thanks. But then I was at a point where I needed to go back. So, yeah. So I'm thinking I'm going to be stretchered back. This is great. I can just lie down and get stretchered back down the mountain. And because you'd see people that have that. It's like, no, 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 no. You've got 8 hours to walk back down from where we are now to where you were based before. And yeah, this is where some of the really key memories were, because in the hut that I was staying in, when you've got the door open, you can look right out, and you've got these little buildings, and then you've got the clouds. So it's only when you're up that high that you see the clouds underneath you. And I'd essentially had an extra day there, and so it feels like that's home to me in some ways. If I like, that was my home during that trip. Like Harombo huts. Yeah, and like the Sherpa that was helping me made this special chips thing. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a really cool food that he'd made for me, especially the next day. And yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things about that feel, and I suppose, like, there's lots of things not said, and I've journaled about this loads, and I probably need to write more of this. But I think one of the hardest things about not reaching the top was the lack of connection to everyone else's experience, feeling that isolation, that I had to endure my experience by myself, and that I won't have that we did it high five type thing with people, or just what it was like on that final day when they're really struggling, because they were all struggling in that last bit. And that's the bit that I do feel proud of how far I've got. I don't feel disappointed anymore. I did feel disappointed at the time, but the missed opportunity with that was that camaraderie of getting to the top together. And I think that's the bit that probably hurt the most. I'm really pleased to have been able to have been sent back down the mountain and not forced to go beyond my means, because then I can tell the story. But it does make me think that so many people don't hear the story about the person that failed to achieve the thing. They hear about that person failed, they failed, and eventually they did it. They don't hear we stopped partway through, and that was enough. And this is where these concepts of the journey being more important than the destination can't be any truer.
Mhm.
And that's where, like with art as well, that you can make a piece of art, an image, and you might not even finish it, or you might not feel finished, but there's enough made. We've got to the point where we can continue, or we can stop just there, or we might have to stop just there. And there's so many things that sort of parallel with life and making meaning of things. But that was about
Yeah.
8 years ago.
No,
So
I
it's
get that because um I don't know how many times there's a lot of been like a lot of people or even myself included, that I couldn't tell you like the things that I failed at. I couldn't tell you what exactly I was aiming for, but I remember the story or the uh, the journey to was where I was aiming to go, and ultimately, things just didn't work out. That's what I remember. I don't. To this day, there's so many things I'm like, I don't even remember why I was doing it.
yeah,
I just had fun trying to do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that moments along the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. So what's Leslie's life like now? I mean, you've done like you've had the experience of uh not dying on Kilimanjaro.
Yeah,
You've learned, you used art. What's Leslie's life like outside of the art and outside of, all these other experiences? What's the family life like?
yeah. So I do really value family. So I'm single and I don't have any children, but I'm an auntie to quite a few nephews, and you know, like tend to spend a lot of time visiting them. Going to be visiting them today actually. Um, and then just being able to like I suppose just explore different things and show up, and like I have my own podcast as well called A New Pace, which
Oh,
is about stepping into a new pace. So I started that, well, I started it years ago, and didn't really do very much with it, but just started to have guests on last June, and so that's been fun. I really enjoyed these sorts of conversations, and I'm writing a book as well, and it links with
oh,
the podcast. The theme's the same. It may not end up with the title A New Pace. It may be different, and the plan is to bring have a bit of a mixture of I suppose sort of self-help, but sort of tips for people to who might be needing to overcome a challenge, with some of my own life experiences, and then with like just sort of almost like different stories that come in. So yeah, that's because a lot of that is about me, times when I am personally stepping into a new pace and doing something different, and times when I've needed to pause, when I've, instead of being forced to stop, I've needed to pause. So like the whole Kilimanjaro story is what was on my mind about that, as well as some of the health issues where I've needed to have surgery and needed to step back and pause. But yeah, I've recently I've been talking a lot about my book that I've been dabbling with for a while. And because I keep talking more and more about it, that's giving more weight to the effort to get it written and get it done. So,
well, yes, you should definitely
yeah.
get that done. And then whenever you've got that done, let me know, and I will definitely buy it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
So
I
you've already got
definitely
one confirmed sale.
amazing. Yeah, deal. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely need that nudge and that push to keep going, because it's so easy to think, well, why would someone want to hear from me? Because there's so many other books out there, there's so many other people's stories. But then actually, even if just one person benefits from it, then that's a win. And even me writing
Yes.
it myself is a win for me, because it's part of my journey and part of my story. And yeah, I don't want to be, these words need to be written. There'll probably be some
I,
pictures
I,
there
I,
as
de-
well.
I definitely agree because that's actually the whole basis of this podcast was, I didn't care about the clicks, I didn't care about the views or the downloads or anything like that. If one person got something from one of the interviews that I've done, like if somebody got something from your interview, then and it maybe changed the way that they thought about themselves or thought about how they handle things, that's a win.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters to me. Um, and whenever I talk to other podcasters and stuff like that, I think we're all, especially whenever we all deal with, the kind of things that we deal with, because while someone as a professional of you and me just being somebody that just likes to listen and give people a platform in a form of a weird live free therapy kind of session,
Yeah.
I thoroughly agree that it is, it's not about um, how many, it's about the one, and the one that you reach is far better than the millions that just kind of hear it.
Yeah. And if thinking about something like the ripple effect, that sort of butterfly effect, where one act that we do ends up sort of impacting so many people without us knowing, then that makes it more worthwhile doing. Because you can often think,
Oh,
well, why bother? Why would it matter? And everything that we do, every decision that we make, I mean, like we have not to get overwhelmed by kind of, oh, everything I do might have an impact on people, but just really recognizing that those kind of things that you do make a difference.
oh, they absolutely do. You mentioned having surgeries. Were you major
Yeah.
surgery or?
Yeah. So I've had 3 lots of surgery, all sort of gynecological stuff to do
Hmm.
with like uterine fibroids. So this has been going on. So 2 years ago, I had a hysterectomy, and so that was my sort of final surgery, all being well. And then 10 years before that, I had sort of another surgery related to remove fibroids, and then there was a smaller surgery. But the thing with this is that so many people experience health conditions that really, really impact their lives. So for me, having fibroids, it made me anemic. So fibroids are sort of non-cancerous tumours in the uterus. And I think 1 in 5 women have them, maybe even more. But they're not always a problem. Sometimes they're just so small that nobody notices, and they may grow as someone's getting older. Like hormones can really impact them, and lots of different. There's not that much research about it, in all fairness, but so many things like endometriosis, adenomyosis, like PCOS. There's so many different things that women experience that there's some research about, but not extensive research. So people often go years and years and years without having a diagnosis and struggling with their emotions around it, as well as struggling with their energy levels. So thinking about it, yeah, this is probably one of the reasons why my sort of fitness plummeted, that being anemic, not having the oxygen. On Kilimanjaro, I probably was anemic. It's possible. But then at the time I felt like I was healthy, but then it was, a few years later that things came back up again. So it's definitely something that has had a huge impact on my life, my circumstances. But then also another one of these pivotal stories where I'm needing to step into a new pace, do something different, see the process, and just hold on to, like, this has been, not the end of the road, but a bend in the road sort of thing. So yeah, and it's weird because I'm sort of 2 years post surgery, and I know that it's a significant sort of part of my story. And 10 years time it probably still will be, 20 years it probably still will be. And just recognizing that anybody else that's going through these things, it can feel quite lonely. People don't always feel that they've got people around them, or there's lots of groups out there that where people talk about it, but everyone's experience is different. But just for me, it was about feeling that maybe this bounces back to the mindset thing, feeling that it wasn't because I wasn't trying that I was struggling, but then there's times when I know the difference between my reasons and my excuses, let's say. So right now when I am feeling healthier, a bit of a nod to accountability thing. It's like you are in a space where you can get fitter now, whereas it just it can be hard if you've been out of the loop for a long time. But yeah.
So I've known a lot of people that have had hysterectomies. Is that so? Pardon me with this because it's blanking on me. Is that
Okay.
basically where if you have one, then you're like the chances of having children are kind of
Yeah,
nixed?
so I don't have a uterus anymore. So
Okay, yeah,
I've no, yeah, so yeah, there's nowhere for the baby to grow. But at my age, like the likelihood of fertility was pretty low anyway. Um, but for some people who have a real desire for children, it can just feel so, so painful. And I mean, I never had children more out of circumstances than out of I never went through IVF or anything like that. Like I know so many people that do, but it was more of a circumstantial thing. But for people who are desperate to have children, and when their bodies and what's going on for them is preventing that from happening, then these kind of things can just feel there's so much grief that goes with that. There's so much loss, and I felt that. Yet it was a bit unexpected because I was thinking, oh, this is just a natural thing. It just makes sense for me to do this. I didn't feel forced. But then some people are at the stages where it's a life-threatening thing where they lose so much blood that they just can't not do it. So, but yeah, it's some people do I know that people have a harder time than me, but then that doesn't undermine my
no.
experience either.
Okay. So does that just make you now like the cool aunt?
I
Are you just throwing
don't
all
know
your
whether
eggs
it's
in that
cool.
basket?
I don't know whether it's a cool ant or a crazy ant, but we can see. It's
Tomato, tomato,
yeah,
tomato. No.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so.
I,
I think I
I,
think so.
I,
And it's like I know like I've got friends that have children as well, and yeah, I think that's where it come in because I know, a lot of the people who some of the communities that I'm in where like there's women without children, they feel a lot of pain when they're around children and around parents because they really feel that loss. Whereas I've worked with children all my life and yeah, it's like the children are great. It's like it's a lot of fun. I think in some ways I am a child. Well, we're all children. It's just then
we're
our
all.
bodies our bodies become adults, but we're still children at heart and allow ourselves to
I,
play.
I had this conversation with a coworker of mine, and and he'd been on the show. We were. It was like roughly right around my birthday, and somebody had said something about like asked me how old I was, and I was like, my age is 43. My body feels like it's 867. My brain is 16 and will forever always be, I think, men or just humankind's. I mean, most of us who don't take life as serious, are the ones that have a lot more fun because we never really desire to grow up. We
Yeah,
have that Peter Pan syndrome of like, I don't want to be a grown up. I like people my age, like right now, that take life so seriously, they're having heart attacks.
yeah,
I'm good. I'm
yeah,
good, you know. I look young. I like my body feels like hell, but that's just because I did some stupid shit whenever I was younger.
yeah. It's true, isn't it? I think I heard the term queenager recently. You know, like people sort of in midlife could have been called recycled teenagers before, or sort of older adults. But yeah, I heard the word queenager, and it's kind of, oh yeah. So I think I am forever a teenager. And the thing with that, as you know, teenagers have this thing where one minute they want to play, and the next minute they want to be independent and responsible. And I think I am like that. Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all like that. I've got 3 teenagers, and it's just baffling how they go through life. And I'm like, man, was I like that? Was I that stupid? Did I say that stupid stuff? And then I'm like, I literally said something stupid like 20 minutes ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's like we're all just so human, and yeah, it's part of what makes
So
it real.
so I've been meaning to ask someone because I have a few friends over in England, so, and now I have another one.
Yeah.
Um, what's how does England handle the what as somebody that's actually in the field? How do you think uh the country of England handles the mental health um
Mm.
world?
Good
Do you think,
question.
without getting yourself in trouble here, uh, do you think that you guys could be better at it? Because I think here in the United States we definitely could be better at it. But what do you think
Yeah.
your country could be better at it?
So there's so many things that influence our mental health, and you know, to normalize that we all have mental health in the same way that we all have physical health, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, and all of that stuff in between. For our physical health, there's things that we can do to feel healthier. We can eat certain foods, we can exercise, we can get plenty of sleep. My sleep's out the window at the moment, but we can get plenty of sleep, we can do things. And the same way that we can do things for our mental health, for our emotional health, that we can connect with people, we can do things that we enjoy, we can do things that we can achieve. And so actually there is a piece of work that involves us all as individuals and families doing those things that are helpful. But then there are times when we maybe needed to step in and grab some help. So our physical health, we might go and see like a doctor, or go and see a physiotherapist if we've got some mobility things going on. And or we might have already done the stretching and then we go and do those things. So it's finding those times to do that. And I think what tends to happen is that because, I don't know, like, I'm just speaking while I'm thinking here, because mental health isn't normalized, because people, if they're feeling anxious or if they're feeling sad or feeling confused with how they're experiencing something and angry, they get judged for those emotions. We squash these emotions down, and normal functioning looks like people going round all numb all the time. But then suddenly we pop out with all of these dysregulated emotions, and what that is actually, I would say that more often than not, that's a suitable emotion compared to the experience that they've had. So if someone's experienced abuse, for instance, they have a right to feel angry. It's an appropriate emotion. They have a right to feel that they don't trust people. That would be entirely appropriate considering what they've experienced. Same with like a bereavement, grief, all of those things. But the difference is, because society forces us to stay regulated and stay in a box and appear to be fine and appear to, you know, manage well, then when people might get to the point where it's then explosive. They've held back, they've not felt comfortable talking about just how sad that they've felt, or whatever it is, or just how lacking motivation that they've felt. So then it appears like they're the odd one out. It appears that they're, you know, irrational or inappropriate. And that's when we get these labels of mental health, and that's when, for sure, there are all sorts of things that influence and all sorts of conversations about how a diagnosis can be useful sometimes, but other times not so much. But I think what what I notice for me and people, just society generally, that we've got all of these things that squash us down, and then we feel bad for feeling bad, and then it becomes people then get into crisis, or people, we don't see how bad someone's feeling, and then it's like going to a doctor or going accessing a mental health service, when, because we, the lists and the demand is great, because people don't aren't able to, or haven't got the tools to address those things at that early stage. And this isn't locating the problem in the individual, it's a systemic thing. So things like financial situations and social, cultural situations can really influence whether somebody would access support for how they're feeling. So many things like that. But I think more and more recently, and in the last few years, people are talking more openly about mental health. I think people are doing things collectively to improve mental health, but I still think that there's far to go to, if the word mental health wasn't seen as a negative, then that would be good. We think about physical health and we might talk about fitness. So if we were saying mental fitness, or mental health, that if we say I'm not healthy, I'm fit, but I'm healthy, but I'm not fit, that could be the same for the mental side as well. So I think there's lots about language and lots about what people's expectations are when they go to a mental health service, because I hear people that would say, well, I'm not that bad, I don't need to go and have therapy, I'm not that bad. But then and they may feel that they're managing okay, they're coping okay, but they may really benefit from having that support and having that therapeutic support. So,
Mm-hmm.
and having that space held for them, because it's not just about how they're coping and getting through, it's being able to not just survive but thrive. But
Oh, yes.
yeah, I think it's less. I think that's probably not necessarily just something about the UK particularly, but maybe just a general nod to
Worldwide,
how
yeah.
mental health might be seen. Because things are painful to talk about, and if they're painful, it makes sense to squash them down and to go, "I'm fine." Secretly, they're struggling, but then, like, it's maybe a bit like the dentist. It's like some people won't go to the dentist at all until they've got like throbbing toothache, and then they go.
Yeah.
Other people go really regularly and they avoid the toothache. But yeah,
Yes. Much like your car or your body, you do have to take care of, do have to put in the time to take care of your mind.
yeah, there is
So,
a lot that people
all
don't
right.
talk about.
Oh, God, 100%. All right, so as we're winding down, I do have one non mental health question, and then I do have my last one. So as somebody that has lived, you've lived in England your entire life, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Uh, so as somebody that really just got into like the whole British scene and or the UK scene, the like I've watched a lot of the stuff. I'm a huge David Tennant fan, so
oh
like
yeah,
Doctor Who and really started getting into well, football over there, and so I don't really know if I can ask about what your feelings are on the royal family, but how did you feel about Princess Diana?
Oh, so you know what? It's so interesting that like people that don't live in the UK always ask about the royal family. It's like I have a friend that's in Britain, like lives in France now, and she as soon as she went there, they were talking about that. So I think that it's really hard for royal anyone that's in the public eye who, and this is where you know, where people struggle to show up and have their visibility and and show their opinions. This is maybe part of like what a factor that influences people's mental health, that they struggle to show their opinions and really express how they're feeling, that they might sit on the fence about things. But the thing when people are in the public eye is that they get criticised and they get judged and they get pulled apart. And more often than that not, it's not about that person. It's about the person that's doing the criticising, that they're feeling hurt, that they're feeling unseen, and they're feeling that. So actually, at the time of sort of Princess Diana, when she died, I was Oh, I think I was 18. So showing my age now. So I think I was 18 and I remember don't do the maths.
I'm right
And
under there with you, so.
and I remember I was working in a supermarket and I was working on that day. And then I remember my mum called me and said, "Oh, something's happened. Somebody's died." And I just had some baby cousins that were born, and I was saying, "Oh, not one of the babies, is it?" And it's like, "Oh no, it's Princess Diana," and it just felt like a shock, and you've got this rippling shock around the world, really. And she's always called sort of the people's princess, and she's always like that kindness, and what she stood for is something that's the legacy that she left, and yeah, it's just like I've worked with children who have lost parents and just can really feel what that's like for them. But I think there's so many things about, and you get people that are sort of in the public eye right now, and you get if you're if you're in that kind of high esteem, then there is a responsibility to be a good person, to not be abusive, to to be kind, to be like above and beyond. And actually, when you see people who are in the royal family who not doing that, then you can feel really hurt and abandoned by our leaders. And like, especially when there's so much money in the royals, you can feel like a real rejection from the system about that, because it's like, what about me? And if seeing the government and seeing royal families and seeing organisations as they're the ones that are systemically our parents, then they're living the lap of luxury and doing all these things that are awful and feel it, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, like, without getting into details, then it can feel like a real there's a, well, what about me? You can feel like you're like a child in the system that's going through and just witnessing that going on. So there's loads of things about attachment in systems and about feeling abandoned and feeling neglected and feeling, well, I'd expect more from that person because they're in that role. But then when I like that the child part of me feels like that, the child parts of me feels that anyone that's in this responsible role needs to be like providing more. But then I know so many people whose their direct parents haven't been able to meet their needs, or they haven't been able to do those things. So I think it then comes down to me stepping up and being my best version of myself, so I can provide that containment for somebody else, or acknowledge that I'm fallible as well. And but then also me communicating my needs to people if I have certain things that somebody else can help, advocating for myself if I go to the doctors, for instance, or when there's a loss, not abandoning myself as well, or not like losing myself. You can lose all kinds of things, but try not to lose yourself. But yeah.
Okay. So, last question. What does Lesley appreciate the most about her life right now?
Yeah, I appreciate. I'm just looking out the window and we've got a really nice blue sky and it's been like really grey the last few days. So I appreciate how there's always hope, there's always something new around the corner. If you're going through a tough time, there's always something new. I appreciate like laughing with my family, like saying something and then just not, you know, like like those silly moments. I appreciate art. I appreciate so many things. I appreciate being alive. I appreciate having arms and legs and so much. I appreciate being on this podcast. This feels like a really nice conversation. Feels like, yeah, that's good. And yeah, I also appreciate how I know that what I stand for, it's appreciate myself in that sense that when we talk about gratitude and when we talk about, you know, acknowledging the good, we often might push away the other things and go, even though this, then this. But what does feel really important is appreciating that if you can feel all of the spectrum, then you can there's a allowance for all of that to happen, an allowance for change. So yeah, our situations are like we can hold on to what we want to keep and go in a direction that we're heading towards. And I suppose it's we can always make choices. We've always got a choice. We've always got options, even when it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, as I won't keep you any longer, so I appreciate you coming on the show, Lesley. You are an amazing woman. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
talking to you and learning from you because I generally think that everything that you talked about, there was the perspective in there that I didn't even think about, I didn't even look at. So I appreciate that. You are a beautiful soul, and I appreciate what you do for not just the people there in the UK, but now like all over the world. Because with 56 countries, listening, or being capable of listening to the show, you're now going worldwide. So I appreciate what you do. In all honesty, um, taking taking a medium and using it to help people in any form is brave and it's courageous and it's commendable. So thank you for that. So, but yeah, so thank you again for coming on the show. I did really appreciate it. It was a great, uh, lovely, chat. Like I said, like before we started recording, I just like to make these just easy conversations, like between two friends, over, over a drink or, like at a dinner table or something like that, or just, just hanging out. The, that's what I like about these interviews, is just being able to talk to people and learning from them. So
Yeah,
you affected one, and that was the whole point of the whole point of the show is like if you can affect one, you can affect, that's what matters. So you already affected one, so boom,
thank you
So
so
thank you
much.
again.
Yeah, thank
No,
you so
thank
much.
you.
It's got me
All right.
thinking as well. So yeah,
Well, I mean, I try to, I do my best to make other people think, but it's very rare that in mid interview that I'm like, oh shit, damn, all right, I didn't even think about it that way. So
yeah,
if I looked like I was like lost, I was thinking, damn, all
yeah.
right.
But that's normal, isn't it? And I'm sort of thinking, how do you manage to like talk and come up with so many words when my whole point of art therapy is that it steps in when words are not enough. And if you can, we're talking about all of these topics, but then it still might not quite capture exactly how we're feeling about something. And then actually, you could talk for 3,000 days and still not feel that you've quite got to the point. but that's where like an image can go, and that's part of that journey. That's why like so many
Yes.
people speak up and then feel that they've not been understood, because it's not quite that, but it's also not quite that. But yeah, this has been really useful, really helpful. I really appreciate
Yes,
being on your
it was it was free talk therapy for the both of us, apparently. So
yeah.
it worked.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
Right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Thanks again, Lesley, and we will talk to everybody on another day.
I'm so thankful for the In Your Head podcast and introducing me to different coping mechanisms and different stories about mental health, and raising awareness and making it known that it is okay not to be okay.
Well, thanks again to Lesley. She was a wonderful guest. Thoroughly enjoyed talking to her. She, as she, as the interview went on, the more she opened up, the more you could tell where her passion lies. And you can tell whenever she had the life experience to talk about certain things. I mean, I've never talked to anybody that ever climbed Kilimanjaro or even attempted to it. So she's a lot braver than me, because I don't know if I could have done it. And as speaking to somebody that works in the therapy game is always beneficial for people that listen or watch the show, because now we have new perspectives. Because I know I do. I have new perspectives on how things work and why things work the way that they do. She was super sweet, super smart, and yeah. So I learned from her, and I like to think that maybe I did make another friend over in England. So Lesley, thank you again. You were absolutely just amazing. Thank you. I can't talk about it enough. And so, yeah, again, out of all the podcasts out there, you listen to this one, and I hope you learned something. I hope you got something from her story. That was the whole point. Everyone has a story. Every story should be told. And Leslie's story definitely had an impact on me, and I hope it had an impact on you. And as we are getting closer and closer to episode 100, I just want to tell you all that this journey has been nothing but spectacular. I've learned a lot about people. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned how the capabilities of people and how they can overcome and not succumb. So thank you again to everyone that listens. It's just been amazing, and I appreciate all of you. So thanks again, and thanks for letting me get inside your head.